Hello and welcome to Bible Study with Alice, and today we're on day 95, Psalm 95 of our daily psalm reading. We are reading from the ESV translation, but you're more than welcome to join us from a different translation. As you can see, we are on Psalm 95. These videos are filmed in real time. Today's date's the 6th of February 25 and it's a Thursday. You can find the previous 94 Psalms in the playlist below. There is a disclaimer as usual, and that is one, these videos are unedited and also I probably stumble my wording. This usually happens, but we'll go with it. Let's get started. Let us sing songs of praise. O come, let us sing to the Lord. Let us make a joyful noise to the rock of our salvation. Let us come into his presence with thanksgiving. Let us make joyful noise to him with songs of praise. For the Lord is great God, and a great King above all gods. In his hand are the depths of the earth. The heights of the mountains are his also. The sea is his, for he made it, and his hands formed the dry land. O come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before the Lord our Maker. For he is our God, and we are his people of his pasture, and the sheep of his hand. Today, if you hear my gosh, can't speak today. 7. For he is our God, and we are his people of his pasture, and his sheep of his hand. Today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts as at Meribah. Meribah. Gosh, I can't even say the word now. Let's go back to 8. Do not harden your heart as at Meribah, as on the day of Massah in the wilderness, when your father put me to the test and put me to the proof, though they had seen my work. For 40 years I loathed the Oh wow, Alice. Go back to 10. For 40 years I loathed that generation and said, they are people who go astray in their heart, and they have not known my ways. Therefore I swore my wrath, they shall not enter my rest. So, I do apologise on a couple of those wordings, but that is Psalm 95 complete. Tomorrow we will be doing Psalm 96. So that's the first half of the video complete. Now, for those who are new, the videos are split into 3 sections. So you have the first section where we read the psalm. Then the second section we will talk about the time periods and how that comes about with the psalms. And then the last part, the third part, we'll talk about the psalm itself. And I am aware the last few days my videos have been incredibly long, so let's see how we go with it and that we don't go too long with them, but we just have to see what happens. Now, with the time periods of the Psalms, so the Psalms were written over a vast period of time, over 1,000 years, and historical scholars, they don't know when all of the Psalms were written, and even those that have a time period, it's not always exact. It's not always like it was written on the 6th of February 25. You see what I mean? It wasn't written like it. Psalms aren't written like that, but they are written over a period of time. And yeah, okay, there are psalms that do have a time period. There are a few psalms that time periods would be something like 1015 BC, 1010 BC, things like that. And there are those psalms that are written over 1,000-year period. but not sure when in that 1,000-year period. So they don't always know fully when those sounds were written, and generally speaking, that's down to the fact that 1, they're very old, 2, it was written in a different language and got translated into English, which obviously doesn't help, because obviously what words we have in English isn't always going to be the same when, for example, if you translate a sentence from, let's just say, French, for example, and you translate that into English, that's going to be worded completely different. It might mean a completely different meaning, or what we say in English and then you translate that into French, it's not going to be the same. It's going to be different. So obviously, you know, when it comes to the time periods, because they were obviously written in a different language and in a different time, the time periods aren't always going to be accurate, fully accurate at that. But there are those songs that do have a time period. And then you've got the two that are linked together. The link would be the fact that they're unknown, and there is a difference as well. So the one that's unknown will have an event linked to it. So it could be during King David's reign, it could be during King Solomon's reign, it could be during exile, it could be during a fight that's happened between some people doing stuff, killing people for the sake of killing people. It could be an affair that happened. You could just imagine it. There's a link. There's an event to them. And then there's those that are unknown and don't have an event linked to it, and they don't know where it was written, why it was written, or how it was written, just that it was written. Obviously they know how it was written, but you know what I mean. They just don't know anything about it apart from the fact that it's a psalm that was there. But with the one in the middle, with the one that has an event linked to it, even though they've got an event linked to it, they don't fully know still when that time period was, because even though it's an event, they just don't know when that event would have occurred. They just know the event had occurred. So that is the second half of the video complete. Now we're on to the third and final part. So I was going to put it down, and then I thought something, and I still put it down anyway, and then we can discuss what I had thought just then. So I know for a fact that if you've watched the previous, I'll go back out again. If you have watched 92, 93, 94, I know what you're going to be thinking. I have to admit, when I wrote it out, I was like, oh gosh, a bit of a repetition going on here. I will explain that in a second. So, it's unknown, likely been written during the pre-exilic period, 600 BCE, or after the exile in 500 BCE. Now, quickly before we get into it, BCE is the same as BC. BCE stands for Before Common Era. BC is before Christ. It is the same meaning. It's the same thing. There's no two ways about it. It's the same thing. Sometimes I like to write BCE, and sometimes I like writing BC. It's the same thing. So, when I was writing my post-it notes up, I was like, oh, don't this sound like a bit of a repetition going about here? And I am correct. Unknown but likely written during the pre-exilic period around 600 BCE or the post-exilic period 500 BCE. Unknown, likely written during the pre-exilic period, 600 BCE, or after exile in 500 BCE. We know where this is going to go, don't we? Unknown, thought to be written during the pre-exilic period, 600 BCE, or after exile, 500 BCE. Sounds like I'm being a bit like, ugh. I'm not actually. I have to admit, I just find it quite amusing that these psalms were written around the same time period. That is actually what it's down to. There's nothing bad about it, in all fairness. And if you've watched 94, which I would actually recommend you going back to, because that's when I pointed it out a couple of times. Now, I think I'm going to make it go back out a bit. So I think 92, 93, 94, and 95, guess what? Were all written during the same period. That's my thought. And I actually think that they were written during the same time period. I think they were written by the same person during the same time period. That's actually what I'm thinking. I'm not being like, fed up about it. I actually think it was all written during the same time period, and probably by the same author. And I think they all kind of had the same similar thing going with it, because of, I'll explain Psalm 95 and then I get into it afterwards. You see what I mean afterwards. So Psalm 95 is a psalm of praise and thanksgiving for people to respond to God's creation with worship and faithfulness. The central message is God's great King who created and sustained everything and worthy of praise. Now you might be thinking, okay, Alice, what we're going to get to? I was actually going to try and pick them up, but I don't know if I can do it this way. So, stick. Okay. A song of praise and thanksgiving to God, celebrating His love, faithfulness, and wisdom. And then on this one, a praise of thanksgiving for people to respond to God's creation with the central message of that, the central message is that God is a great King who created and sustained everything and worthy of praise. So, easily off the, an easy thing to say is at least we can say that Psalm 92 and 95 most definitely were written by the same person, for 100% certain, because of the way I'm not 100% certain. I would never be 100% certain on anything, but I am thinking that Psalm 92 and 95 were definitely written by the same person. Has to be, because a song of praise for two of them, and they were written during the same time period, kind of tells you that it would have been by the same person. So, let's move them out of the way. So then, obviously, 93 is obviously about focus on God's power and majesty as a creator and ruler of the world. A plea for God to intervene in a world of injustice and oppression is a prayer for God to act as the ultimate judge and brings retribution against the wicked. Now, I definitely think Psalm 93 and 90. and 95 would most definitely would have been like a continuation type psalms, which we have found during our time doing our Bible study. And I think it's kind of them two. And then it would have been obviously on about Psalm 93. So I think 92 and 95 would have been written at the same, like, Hosea as a continuation type psalm. Then it would have gone into this one, a focus on God's power and majesty as the creator and ruler of the world. And then I think this would have been the last part of the puzzle, if you want to say. This would definitely be the ending type of thing of the puzzle. A plea for God to intervene in a world of injustice and oppression. It's a prayer for God to act as the ultimate judge and bring retribution against the wicked. So I do think that would have been like the ending part of out of these selection of psalms that we are looking at. So that is Psalm. Oh gosh, move my camera slightly. So that is Psalm 95 complete. I'm trying to find ways to write it. So I'm going to go at the bottom. So you can see that I am writing it. Is why I've actually wanted to move my camera. 95. And it is, I can't think today. It's too early in the morning. It's the 6th of February. That's all I can say. It's definitely early in the morning. So that is Psalm 95 complete. Tomorrow we will be looking at Psalm 96. Thank you for watching. Please like my content. Please subscribe to my channel. And please turn on the notification bell to get notified of content like this that gets uploaded to the channel. Thank you and goodbye.